emulate, leading the green transition with the world's second most livable city, the most
Alright, chat.
contented workforce,
We got
and Europe's
Denmark, the
shortest
state of
working
happiness.
hours.
Check it out.
But its people pay some of the highest personal taxes. So, what makes the Danes so happy?
A lot of people ask, is there
Beer.
more? Can we scale this? And I don't think so.
I pay about 37% of my income in taxes.
37,
You
that's
don't
quite
pay
a
much
lot.
tax, you're not able to have
Although
this
it's not
welfare
like
state, and
Germany,
so
you know.
you see, it's all interconnected.
Germany's like freaking 50% or something.
We're not allowed to do exams, exactly, and we're not allowed to give grades. So that is a very unique possibility for us to teach in a way that nobody is controlling how we do it.
Ah, no grades? It's only for like kindergarten, alright? Not like actual schools, I think. You gotta have grades, maybe, maybe not.
Copenhagen, the world's most sustainable capital. But like everything in Denmark, that happened not by accident, but by design. In the 1980s, the city was close to bankruptcy, with heavy industry in decline, a falling population, falling tax income, and a dirty, polluted river. The challenge was to bring young families back, so the council asked how and got a surprising reply.
Okay, how?
Swimming right here in the centre of the city. And
By swimming?
if I could have it, my colleague Tina Sobby is here.
Nice to meet you. You're here, right in the water.
I know. How
Yeah, I live
We're
so
here
close to
together.
Denmark. I really want to visit it.
Tell me, you were the city architect here for 10 years and saw a lot of changes. When did they start swimming here in the harbour?
It began around year 2000, 2002. We had the
Just
first
swimming in the-
bath. I guess it was
Why
in
not?
2000.
And just how much did you have to clean the water? Because it must have been horrible.
Quite a lot. So there
Bro,
was a lot of
imagine
pipes
someone swimming in the
that was
river
going
Thames.
directly into the water, and we needed to
You'll get like
clean
some
them.
freaking bacteria infection straight away.
That's putting it mildly. A new sewage
That river
system
looks
was
nice, though.
installed with a runoff to make sure rainwater didn't cause overflows and the harbour sediment was cleaned. It cost hundreds of millions of
It looks
pounds
really nice.
40 years ago, but it was worth it.
The harbour was splitting the city in two. Nobody was coming down to the harbour because it was industrial area and it was dark and it was gated, and yeah, so it was not a place you came. And today the harbour, you can see, is almost binding together the Copenhagen.
Elsewhere, a newly restored waterfront would be full of upmarket flats and private piers, but not here, with planners determined to protect public access.
We have a planning system where we have been putting some guidelines and regulation, so all the area is with public access. So a lot of
That
the
makes
land
sense.
is privately owned.
So they can't,
but
like,
but
privatize
it is with
it.
public access, and I guess the solution that people can walk and bike along the harbour is also one of the reasons that we want to go
I think
here.
people just want to have like,
to keep the population in, have you got more families that are living
you know,
and not
someone
going off
that
to a smaller
makes
suburb?
When you
something
just
for
look around
them.
Here, there is young people, there is families, kids, babies, and
Like,
there is
people are
also,
tired of just getting
old
sucked
people.
dry by
So I
the
guess we have quite
economy and everything.
a good population here, where every generation is living in the city.
That's
But
nice.
the 80s restoration didn't stop at the river. Housing was improved, and instead of glorified bin parks in back tenements, Copenhageners got lovely designed gardens with rules to guarantee cooperation.
I love like
You
little
should,
gardens inside
make
of
it
cities.
into,
It's so
one
like
community, so you're not allowed to
atmospheric.
put any fence to privatize it. It should be, the rainwater should have its own system, so you were off the big system. There should be no cars. So in a way, you can also
Alright,
say it
then-
was an early thinking of sustainability. And then the important thing was also that we should maintain it ourselves afterwards. So it was also a democratic way.
gives it like back to the people
of taking
to
care
take
of it.
care.
So now
Makes
there
sense,
is
makes sense.
money from every family living here into the maintenance.
Oh, it's like
So there is
communal.
A community maintenance, you can say.
Okay, wait, that actually makes
A
so much
third
sense.
of homes in Copenhagen are cooperatively owned, and that's helped cap prices. Housing costs
It
are
kind of
slowly
gives
rising,
like the council
but
less
heating remains relatively
power
cheap. The city's had district heating
in a way,
for 100 years,
you know?
and 98% of homes today get high-efficiency, low-cost heat from 10 central boiler plants. No
Let's
struggling
go.
with individual boilers here.
Okay. Yeah, where would you
Only
rather
the
live?
Danes could imagine and build a heating plant
Denmark
like this.
or
The
America?
Amerbaki plant, nicknamed Copenhill, has
think
an
it's-
artificial
Whoa,
snow
that's
slope
crazy.
on the roof.
It's an no way, I gotta visit that. Dude, that looks so weird. It's like
The
greenery
energy
but
comes
pollution
from
at the same time.
incinerating local rubbish, and that means minimal transport. The only emissions are water vapor.
Oh,
But
it's
the
water
city
vapor.
aims to switch to
Okay.
biomass by
So it's not pollution.
2025.
It looks so weird to me, like you're inhaling like like
Another design feature that keeps
chemicals while
Copenhageners
skiing down,
happy
but
is
it's just water
travel.
vapor, okay.
Bikes outnumber cars. Today, 58% of residents travel to work and school by bike using 500
bike.
kilometres of bike lanes and car-free bridges.
This is one of the great bits of infrastructure.
Yeah, I feel like that's
that
only
makes
an option in
cycling
Europe,
the
though.
fastest way to
Everything's
get
so
around
close.
Copenhagen and the safest, because it's a cycle and pedestrian-only bridge.
Yeah,
That's what
nah.
makes cycling popular, because it's fast, it's quick.
I'm joined by Marianne Weinrich, who chairs the Cycling of Denmark. No anguish-stressed expressions on cyclist faces here. Generally, no helmets. In fact, people don't look like conventional cyclists at all.
It's striking to see women like you're beautifully dressed.
Yeah, you know.
Change into work, cycling gear to get messy or mucky.
No, we don't dress for the ride, we dress for the destination.
Right.
Amazingly, in the 1980s, Copenhagen was as car-centred, congested and cycle-unfriendly as many Scottish cities today. But there's been a lot of work
Compared to
to turn
Scotland, a
that
lot, huh?
around. We've come to Norrapor station in the city centre, redeveloped with a huge bike park. It's big, but already not big enough.
Politicians have chosen every year to have budget and investments and build more and more cycle lanes. So it is kind of because the people also want it, and we have visionary politicians who, makes decisions about this and sees this as part
So
of
many bikes.
mobility in Copenhagen.
Crazy.
You're so relaxed here about cycling because you've built in the safety through the design of the Copenhagen lanes.
Safety is part of the design. It's not necessarily something you wear. And protected bike lanes is kind of the Copenhagen, the Danish design standard. And that means that there is a pedestrian area and there's a curb, a physical separation that also separates pedestrians from cyclists. And then we have
smart.
the bike lane, and then there's a curb that again physically separates the moving cars from the cyclist. And that physical barrier is key, because if it's just a painted lane or something like that that you can cross, it doesn't give the same kind of
Security?
feeling of safety and security, and also de facto safety and security.
Is that a key thing for getting women actually onto bikes? Because that's very noticeable here.
Yes. Research has shown that the share of women cycling in a city is an indicator for how safe it is to cycle there. Women are generally more averse to risk in life than men. And when it comes to cycling, we simply won't cycle if it's not safe. I would say we're kind of smart that way. Also, when you combine that
Makes
with the
sense,
fact
right?
that
Guys are a bit more
women
reckless.
do 75 of the unpaid care work in the world, and that also means often traveling with children, then you need it to be extra safe for you to travel
When it comes to
with your children.
dealing with children,
so
is so
designing
important.
for especially for women and also for children to be able to cycle. That is designing, with safety in mind, and then that's part of normalizing cycling and making it for a much broader group than the younger, more daring and strong and fearless.
Tour de France cyclists.
Yeah.
Although you're pretty good at that as well.
Yeah.
It's a joined-up transport strategy that makes cycling the obvious choice for commuters.
There's a dedicated compartment for bikes, not just 5 places. You don't
You
have
can
to
put
fight for it.
bikes
It's
on.
not bookable, and it's on every commuter train. It's to die for.
See, wherever I go on like public transport, they're always like, nope, don't bring your bike in. Not allowed.
Leaving Copenhagen behind, I'm off to
Yeah, I
explore
always
the
found it
rest
so
of this
stupid because
island
like, how are
nation,
you supposed
heading
to
for
travel?
the small town of Skive
Obviously, like-
in the heart of Jutland.
I don't know.
Denmark has roughly the same population as Scotland, but just half the landmass. It wasn't always this way. Denmark once controlled Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland,
Once.
and Schleswig-Holstein, lost to Germany in a disastrous war in 1864, after which Denmark almost ceased to exist. Yet the Danes
Oh, I didn't know
rapidly
that.
adapted
Oh,
to
she
this
watched some
huge loss of
Danish
territory,
history.
population and status without acrimony
I love
or
history. I
nostalgia.
love to learn about history.
Instead, the country accepted change and powered back, thanks in large part to an education system that's quite unique.
Take the next right onto Freelandsvej.
Well, there is life beyond Copenhagen and the big cities. This is small town Denmark. It's very different though. It's quiet. There's no pub. There's no shop in this little village, but there are apparently 6 little groups and societies, all funded by the council. So people are active citizens here, just not in the public realm.
Okay.
Larissa Albers is a teacher and mum. She walks her son Felilik to kindergarten every morning.
Okay.
They start the month before they turn 3.
Children start primary school not at 4 or 5, but at 6 in Denmark. And kindergarten is a light touch start.
They
Same
work
in
with
Poland.
the letters and they
Start at
work with the
6.
numbers and the colors, of
Unless
course,
something's
but
changed
it's not
ever
a
since
must that you can spell
I
out
was
your
6.
own name.
Okay.
It costs roughly a third of a full-time place in the UK.
If you didn't have the kindergarten or any childcare, it would be very hard for you to be a teacher at all.
Yes, exactly. I have about a 30-minute drive to my work and also 30 minutes back.
Yeah, that's not
so
bad.
I need to go somewhere I can deliver my children and know they are safe, and then I can do my
That's actually
job
not that
and
much.
provide money and provide for my family. You
I'm
need
used to
pick your
traveling
child
my
up before
1.5
5,
hours
and that's fine.
one way.
If you don't mind me asking, how much tax are you paying, and are you happy to pay high tax for these facilities?
Yes, I pay about 37% of my income in taxes, and I'm really happy, and I'm glad I'm doing
That's
it.
like not
because it
low,
means I
but
got the
not high,
kindergarten,
right?
I got hospitals and anything I need provided.
Is that the Danish way?
Yes, we all help each other so that everybody gets the possibility to go to kindergarten. You also have families who don't have that much money, and then by us paying taxes, we actually help them getting a cheaper or more discount in the daycare. And some of them even go freely to daycare. They don't have to pay.
That's
Head
nice.
teacher Marianne Christensen says the kindergarten encourages children to explore and learn the key skill of cooperation.
We have activities that the grown-ups are preparing for the children all day. Today we are really having a good weather, so we are outside. But we can go inside and cut and paint and play, and we all have all kinds of toys inside. Yeah.
Do any of the children have a difficulty with being outside?
No,
Why?
not at all. Yeah. It's mostly the parents.
Why
that
would it
have
be-
difficulties?
Oh.
They think they're hiding and we can't see them, or they're cold.
something
they're
could
wet,
happen.
but that's not.
Bro, they
an
straight up
issue
got like
at all.
tools. That's crazy.
What do the children get from being outside all the time?
Experience. They have to taste and feel and yeah.
That's actually
And
awesome.
social activities, skills are very, very good because they
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean, that sounds
move
good.
and get inside the play.
I would
Can
love to
be
do that as a
with you,
kid.
or can I not?
And so they're learning to cooperate.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is the Danish way.
Yeah. The Danish way
The
is
Danish way.
that children playing is very valuable. Yeah, yeah.
The kindergarten sets up play and cooperation in education, but that gets reinforced at the age of 15 when many youngsters spend a year away from home in a remarkable Danish invention, the efterskole. They still do
After
core
school.
academic subjects, but also learn something they truly love. This efterskole specialises in diving, swimming and sailing.
Damn, okay.
There's a holiday today, but normally
Is that free or
170
no?
15-year-olds from all over Denmark are learning, living, cooking and diving together.
I feel like the Danish kind of like
Principal teacher
standard
Yannick
of living
Marshall
is really
says
high,
efterskole are about far more than just hitting academic grades.
right?
I think it's important that we take some of the pressure off, take some of the tempo out of getting through to college and getting through to our work, and I think that's too much. We have to stay right
Yeah,
now
I actually did diving. I got my
this
diving
age,
license
15, 16,
when I was 16.
and look at each other, but also look inside and say, who
I had
am
to pay a lot of money.
What do I want to do with my life?
And I haven't upgraded after, because you have to
I
like
can see
upgrade
you
it
living a different life
after
from
you're like
the one I've lived. That's interesting. Tell me more. So this
18.
this whole dannelse as a begreb, that's efterskole.
Students share domestic chores, and for most of these 15-year-olds, it's their first
gonna
time
lie,
living
Denmark
away
sounds like
from
fun.
home.
And they sit in the dining room in the family.
All right. So it kind of makes it more manageable rather
Yeah.
than being 170 people.
Yeah. And then each family has a teacher that's their mentor or closest relation to home and home. And that's a very important role to be, because life hurts sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The young people who come here are learning how to cooperate,
It's really supportive.
create a community and become active citizens.
I think we're happy, but we're also very self-focused, and we try to use this year to show that now you're part of a fellowship. This is the strength of a fellowship. You give and you take, and some give more because they're wider shoulders right now or being a better place in life, and then you give more to the community, and then you get back. So there's ups and downs in life. The ups and downs this year. So I think that's also one of the big values of being an efterskole.
sounds nice.
What's not to love? But the chance to explore your interests in yourself doesn't end with efterskole at 15. Danes aged 18 to 99 can also attend folk high schools or folk højskoler. These residential learning centres, inspired by the Danish thinker Nikolai Grundtvig, expand horizons, especially in that year between high school and university.
Okay.
Caroline Spield Hogsbro, the principal at Krabbesholm Højskole, explains that they recruit passionate practitioners, not conventional teaching staff.
We're not allowed to do exams, exactly, and we're not allowed to give grades. So that is a very unique possibility for us to teach in a way that nobody is controlling how we do it. Well, there is obviously some kind of control. We have to teach for some hours, for a certain amount of hours, and it's not like there's no control with the schools at all. But it is a very clear claim of the school that we should not be a school with a curriculum and no exams and no paper. If you ask people who are in my age, they would say the year in the efterskole or the year in the high school was the best in my life. So that's something you take with you the rest of your life.
Krabbesholm is a modern arts-based school in a
I guess they've been doing it for a
500-year-old
while, huh?
building with living
Like,
teachers
the way they
whose
teach
role
like that.
is to encourage and inspire. teacher Kirsten Pals is here after an international career in visual arts.
Because it's not like it's like a
I'm not
new
trained
thing
as a
to
teacher.
Denmark.
I am trained as a visual artist,
Like the way they do
and
this.
I work as a visual artist. And this is also something which is possible in this kind of school, that we can work here without being trained as teachers, but we come here through our knowledge and engagement and passion for the arts.
I'm from Oslo, Norway, and I can already see a huge difference in how the education system is between the two countries. Because here it's more for your own sake than doing something for your teacher. So you develop much more skills, and I feel like we're all very motivated to do whatever we're doing in whatever studio or workshop, because it's
I mean,
for
that
your
sounds
own sake,
awesome.
and
Probably
you learn so much more than just having a grade and a teacher coming in kind of
like Denmark has
saying,
like
"Oh, no,
high
don't do that," they kind of guide
education,
you.
like what's it called when you leave a school with like higher grades?
I think it's quite normal in Denmark to do a højskole. Men jeg klikkede ret meget på et tidspunkt. Så det,
okay. Ja, det kan være det.
I'm 21 and I used to go to gymnasium and I did 2 gap years. And I thought that I might want to try to do some art and architecture, so I found this school.
So you didn't go to university? It's like the after
The
school.
students pay for half of the fee, and the Danish government believe very much in this kind of school, so they also subsidize højskole in Denmark, because we believe that it's a larger project, making good citizenships. So what you get with you in this half a year about living together, taking responsibility for each other, being a collective, and orienting, or like this personal development, has such a high value that the Danish government have decided to pay for this kind of school.
To be honest, that sounds awesome.
Of course, university still plays an important role
Yeah, I was
in
gonna
Danish
say, how does that
education.
like
Tuition is free,
play
and
into
students often qualify for additional living support expenses. It's part of flexicurity, another uniquely Danish take on the welfare state that accounts for more than a third of all government spending. Danes pay an average income tax of about 40%. So what do they get for their money? Free healthcare may sound like the average welfare state, but flexicurity is different. There are the small things, like parents get a day's pay to stay home with a sick child. And the
I never understood why like
Danish pension is truly livable,
dentists
not one of
aren't
the worst in the
covered
developed world. And
under
unemployment benefit is linked
stuff
to pay.
like that,
That's the
like
security
healthcare.
part. But unusually, it's also relatively easy to get laid off in Denmark, and that's the flexibility bit.
Oh.
Here at Roskilde University, Professor Jon Qvist is an expert in Denmark's welfare policies.
We have a flexible labor market, so it's relatively easy for employers to sack people, and that's one of the reasons why we don't have zero-hour contracts. You know, employers can take in people if they need more labor, and they can sack them if they don't need them. Because there's a high turnover, the economy works well, but it's not borne on the shoulders of the employers or of the unemployed. It's borne on all of us, on the society who collectively finance these unemployment benefits.
That's nice, I guess. You know, if you get laid off, fired for like a couple of months,
so that's
you
the
got that
contract we have, that you're not entitled to a specific job, but you're entitled to a job. And if you don't have a job, then you will get unemployment benefits and active labor market policies and other measures trying to get you back into work.
And that must be what partly makes Danes happy, is security.
Yeah, I've not thought about it that way before. But my friend, the painter, he loses his job 2 to 4 times a year, and he's a very happy man because he knows that he will get another job when he's fired, and he knows that in between the 2 jobs he will get an unemployment benefit. So he's not uncertain about his income, and his financial institutions are not certain that he will pay his mortgage. So
I guess similar in England too, they have benefits like that. Or similar benefits. I don't know.
So where does the money come from? What fuels an economy that can finance such a generous welfare system?
It's probably the freaking
Denmark
high
is now
taxes.
a small country with relatively few natural resources.
It's incredible to think
Or
that
medium taxes, I
longships
guess.
like these once crossed the oceans in the Viking era, striking terror into the hearts of people in Scotland, England and Ireland. But although the longships era has passed, the Danish domination of the world's seas continues unabated.
Maersk is one of the world's biggest shipping companies. And in the 70s, just as the Danish government had a hungry welfare system to feed, Maersk diversified into something new. Henny Morgan is the Maersk company historian.
We also went into energy production, formed a consortium called the Danish Underground Consortium, and they produced the first Danish oil in 1972.
Oil rigs?
Which is actually ahead
Wait,
of
there's oil
Norway
in
and
Denmark?
Scotland.
Yes.
So you're just quietly first.
That developed into a company called Maersk Oil. We developed into contractors with a company called Maersk Drilling, offshore services in Maersk Supply Service. So got engaged in offshore and oil and gas production, which became a significant leg in the Maersk companies after 1972.
It's ironic to be sitting in a country that's a leader in the green transition when you still got a lot of your business in oil.
We did have a lot of our business in oil.
Yeah, that's
we
kind
have
of counter.
divested basically all of our activities in production of oil and gas by now, and as a reaction to the green transition, Maersk Supply Service is still part of the A.P. Møller Group, but is moving away from.
And you paid taxes at a time when Denmark was really rolling out its welfare state.
Yes, in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, where we had the contract with the Danish state on the production of oil and gas, we paid a lot of taxes, and whether that paid for some of the welfare state, absolutely. Our role today has probably been taken over by other companies because most of our activities, the Maersk activities, are around the world. This is the office of Mr. A.P. Møller, so the founder of Maersk. Right. He died in 1965, and at that time the office was put down and taken away and then re-established here as part of our museum.
Your founder had some great sayings. And
His
one of them
office got
was,
a
if
own
you have
museum.
the ability, you have the responsibility. So what does that mean?
Let me start with the Danish phrase. It's called nyttig virksomhed,
Nyttig?
meaning having a positive impact on society. So if you look at many of the sayings of A.P. Møller and his son Maersk Mc-Kinney Møller, you'll find this lying underneath what they're saying. We want to have a positive impact on society. And if we have the ability,
sounds just
we
like
also
PR to me,
have
to be honest.
responsibility to act.
We're drilling oil and like polluting the environment, but we want to be positive.
For a small country, Denmark has some huge corporations. Maersk is known all around the world, though it may not quite match Lego as a household name. That pioneering plastic toy launched in 1958. 400 billion pieces have been made since, and that's 50 bricks for everyone on the planet. And the wind industry would be the same without the innovation of Danish blacksmiths in the 1970s who created the company Vestas. Today, they produce a fifth of all the world's wind turbines on and offshore and sit at the forefront of Denmark's green international image. Danish turbines are powering an international energy revolution, but the underlying infrastructure needs to keep pace. That's where Danish colleges come in. Skive College trains students from all over Europe in electricity distribution and subsea cabling. Head of Education Kurt Lindholm says they constantly adapt to the latest industry needs.
Every year we have an adjustment of what is asked for in knowledge and competence. What are we going to produce of students and knowledge to fit the future? I'll say about 80 to 90%
Denmark has
of
like
students
highly
are
skilled workers, right?
linked to the
And
green
highly
transition
valued
in the future.
workers.
I'm from Hull. Kingston upon Hull. The reason I'm here is I'm a trainee for my company called Swire Energy Renewable Energy Services, and we're here for a training to get qualified to a 66 kV training.
We have people from Poland, Great Britain, Portugal on a commercial training because the green transition is global, and we provide some specific skills and some specific training that are needed around the world, so they come here. We are a small country, but we know we are good in engineering and we are good in acting, convert knowledge to action, so we can sell our knowledge, we can sell our products. I think we have realized we cannot only produce things or components, we also need to produce things that can be exported like knowledge.
Right.
Well, we're leaving the mainland behind and heading to the tiny island of Samso. Normally people think that the big advances, the pioneers, the go-getters are all in cities, but this little island rather proves differently. They were the UN climate champions at the COP26 summit, and they're likely to be net zero before the rest of Denmark and Europe.
Okay. That sounds exciting. Isn't the only country like
Jutland coast,
is it Tibet
the island
or
of Samso
Bhutan
is less than 4,000 inhabitants
CO2
and
positive?
it's less than a third of Arran in size. It's a low-lying farming community and a popular holiday destination, not so different to many islands around Scotland.
This metal is part of a system that pretty much no Scottish island has, which is a big subsea connector that takes all the surplus energy in Samso for sale on the mainland of Denmark. And that's exactly the opposite direction of travel that it used to be when the cable came in 1960.
Okay. They use that energy.
Agriculture is at the heart of the island economy, with small farms producing cereal crops and vegetables. Typically Danish, they trust that the tourists will pay.
Isn't like grocery stuff like super expensive though?
In 1998,
I guess then
Samso
again,
Council
people that
won
live there
a
make more
Danish
money.
government competition to become a
So it
model
doesn't matter.
community for the green transition. Now an energy academy is generating and passing on skills and knowledge. Its champion is a vegetable farmer turned energy guru, Søren Hermansen, who has the human nous needed to bring canny islanders
That's a
on
cool
board,
looking house.
who wouldn't accept change simply for change's sake.
The whole concept of being green is actually also, in my perspective, not what we aim to be. For us, I think it's kind of how to maintain a healthy society. It's maybe the most important reason for people to accept changes. If we can change things to the better, and the better is not for me to decide. It's not environment, it's not energy or wind turbines, but the wind turbines can be tools to achieve what you want to change, or where you want to make a better quality of your life in a social concept.
At some point, we're gonna be like fully green energy, right? I think
to find
like
these
that's the only
connection,
way.
this glue of society, where we can say, where does it make sense? And then wind turbines was one answer, and using biomass instead of imported oil was another one. I mean, every time we had to evaluate it, does it tick all the boxes? Is it cheaper? Is it better? Is it local? Does it produce jobs? Which was
then
all
again,
the
I have
answers,
no idea
that
what
we
I'm
had
talking
on the
about,
other side. I think that is basically kind of our recipe. And a lot of people ask, is there a model? Can we scale this? And this is, I don't think so. It's not scalable, but it's inspirational.
There's nothing new about wind power in Denmark, but getting the islanders to accept a new generation of towers in the landscape took careful negotiation.
Oh, is it like
While farmers
a
like
big
Jørgen
farmer
could see
land?
the money in wind, that didn't impress all of the neighbours.
We get a license here because we have a good area here. It's a long way to church. That's the point one.
Oh, okay. So if there was a church here, that would be a problem.
Is Denmark
no,
very
it
Christian?
was hopeless.
Oh.
To avoid kind of the conflict between farmers and neighbors, we had an agreement with the farmers that they would lease land to a co-op, and the co-op was already existing, and they could then have 2 turbines, or we didn't know how many, but we asked people to sign up and show up and say, I'd like to buy a share in a wind turbine. Not to silence them, but to give them an opportunity to be co-owners, because the co-ownership makes people much more aware.
So they just bought them out.
It's there, well, because it's money in the pocket for one reason, but it's also like you are part of a process where you are involved in it, both physically and mentally, that we are doing this, not just a few farmers.
And so in 2 weeks there was 50 farmers that asked for wind turbines on the countryside.
Wow.
Because it was terrible good business. Everybody could see. We could pay it back
Money.
in 6-7 years.
And once islanders shared the benefits, few begrudged Jørgen his new wind-based business empire.
I have the farming and the energy, and now we have built 20 flat for older people. So now I have 3 legs.
3 legs, right.
Yeah.
Okay, not just one farming leg.
Yeah.
You have a farming leg, an energy leg, and a building leg.
That means something else than what I know.
That's quite a lot of legs.
Søren's plan also included making the island's villages and towns more energy efficient. They had largely relied on imports of oil, but their own fields were brimming with another potential fuel, and there was a looming energy crisis.
So then we talked and negotiated with the farmers. They knew what the oil prices were, and we said to them, can you provide a 20% cheaper price with straw? Then I think we can convince most people to connect to district heating, because this will mean the energy bill will be cheaper per year. So there's a win-win for everybody. That the house owners will have cheaper heat, the farmers will make a living or make an income.
It's nice that they
straw,
find
where they
ways
usually
that
just have to
actually
compost
like
it on the field, and we
work
produce a number of jobs we didn't have before, to dig down the trenches for piping, connecting the houses, taking the oil furnaces out and putting in heat pumps and so on and so forth. So when we talked about it in that way, we gave kind of a lot of different reasons for people to connect to this and say, yes, this is exactly what we're wishing for.
You also killed a lot of birds with one stone, because when you had the pavements up, you put a lot of stuff down there in one go.
I mean, when we're looking at change, a lot of people say, but we also have this problem and that problem and this problem, and then we can get stuck in a number of problems that piles up.
Really
Instead, we try to reverse that and think, how many problems can we solve in one go? So when we do open up the road, then we could talk to the water people and say, what about these old rusty steel pipes? Maybe it's time to change them. All right, that's fine. We'll pay our bit. The electricity people, why don't we take these hanging wires down that every now and again there's a storm or ice, or they also corrode and they fall down, and maintenance costs are higher and higher. Put them in the ground in cables, and it could be broadband, it could be many different things here. So we talked to everybody and made them commit to this and co-finance the installations. So that made everything cheaper.
So you are 3,700 people with one council here. Yeah, and that really works. You would be in Scotland. There is nothing that small.
No.
So everything's huge.
Sometimes people also say, it would be much better if we're in a bigger municipality, because there's also a lot of little things that becomes big problems because we are a small place. But I think in the long run, it has a lot of advantages to be a small place where we can actually communicate directly. But I mean, everything has a flip side. But true. I think that's true. It is better to make decisions in a smaller environment where you know who to talk to.
That very local decision made Jørgen a happy farmer. Islanders too. 80% now have district heating, and their bills were cut during the cost of living crisis when UK bills trebled. Samso has 4 district heating
Seems like
boiler
the farmers
plants.
are living nice.
Bales from local farms are loaded on a slow conveyor belt that inches the straw into a high-efficiency burner. The furnace heats water, and the water's piped in the streets to heat local homes, with ash returned to the fields.
In here, I see a whole lot of straw bales. That's kind of like a bit of a straw shed. You see, on the other hand,
this is not just a hay barn. This is a bank deposit for energy.
The great thing about this is that all your materials basically are so local.
I mean, this facility has contracts with 5-6 farmers who are not more than 3 to 5 kilometers away from this facility. And we have the same with the other facilities also. So we don't spend kind of the saved carbon emission in transporting long distances and big trucks and tractors driving on the roads for long distances.
And then the other thing is, if anything goes wrong, the machinery is simple enough that a local person can fix it.
This is not high tech, so yes, we can call the plumber and he'll
So how are they?
fix
How is
almost
the rest of the world not doing that?
with his own tools and his own capacity.
You know.
The only variable factor is weather. Late season rain has delayed the harvest this year. So as I leave Samso, the farmers are still in the fields. It's clear that going green has brought jobs, security and cheaper energy, and that's made the whole community very happy.
Back to the capital.
Back in Copenhagen, I'm heading to the heart of Danish democracy. How have these progressive policies survived the coming and going of governments over 50 years?
The TV series Borgen brought Denmark's coalition politics into living rooms across the world, with its female prime minister hatching deals in these very cloisters. And that's because Denmark's proportional parliament demands negotiation, unlike the Westminster system with its first past the post and winner takes all.
Hvis ikke vi kommer med et konkret tilbud, han kan forholde sig til, så lugter han blod.
Det giver mig ikke på integration.
Oh, is this a movie?
De får Finans, Justits og Udenrigsministeriet og 6 andre, så tager vi økonomi og erhverv, undervisning og kultur.
Borgen's dramatic film location is nowhere near the actual seat of government. That business is conducted across the river in less striking, if more practical, modern
Was that a good
settings,
movie?
like the Foreign Ministry. Dan Jorgensen is the Minister for Climate, Energy and Utilities.
Most people will have watched Borgen and thought that, okay, that's brilliant, it's impressive, but it's a drama. It is actually for real, because your parliament, your governments, are invariably coalitions between many parties, and that's normal because you've got a proportional parliament.
Well, not only are they coalitions, very often they will also be minority governments. So you'll be in governments, but you won't actually have the majority yourself. You're dependent on other parties to support you. And this makes it almost impossible for political parties to just go strictly for their own agenda. Also, very often, even if you have a majority, for instance, right now we have a majority government, we don't actually use that majority very often. We almost always seek to have other parties on board, for several reasons. One is, okay, so if power changes, we're pretty sure that the decisions that we've made will stand. That's an important reason. But also, actually, it's a part of Danish culture, that political culture, that broad majorities and broad compromises are seen as a good in itself. Now, if you ask most Danish people, they would probably tell you that they think that we have a lot of political differences in Denmark, but which we also do on some issues.
I mean, like any country,
if you
right?
compare it to almost all other countries, the things that we are arguing about in the Danish parliament are quite small differences. So, for instance, we have this tax-funded welfare state, and there's actually no parties in the Danish parliament that wants to fundamentally change that.
I must say, in the time that we've been here, we can really see that just in every sort of small way, people are very relaxed. It's very consensual. There's not much conflict about.
Well, this is also something that you can see in the United Nations happiness index. We are almost always on top of that index, and I think, again, obviously,
what country is the smartest?
The people
happiest
of a country to be happy.
I mean, they're saying they're a happy
but
country.
Also for rational reasons. I mean, a happy country is a country that's less sick, that's more productive, that's got less conflict. There's so many positive things to say about that. And of course, it's all a circle, because if you're not happy and you don't have a lot of trust, social capital in society, then you're not able.
Probably some countries away from civilization, to be honest.
Tax, you're not able to have this welfare state, and then so you see it's all interconnected.
In the 1970s, a big decision happened when the oil crisis happened, the OPEC crisis happened, all the oil and gas prices in the world went up, but Denmark did something really quite extraordinary afterwards, which was?
Well, we decided that it wasn't a good idea to be dependent on energy sources from other countries. So basically, instead of being dependent on oil from countries that could, like this, decide to raise the prices and thereby hurt our economy, we needed alternatives. And that's actually how we started developing renewable energy. So at that time, it's strange to think about it now, but at that time it didn't really have anything to do with the environment. It wasn't a green movement as such. It then quickly evolved to that because many of the very active forces in the Danish society that wanted to make this happen were also interested in the environment, so it went hand in hand, but actually that's how it started.
So really it was about protecting your independence as a country, really?
Yeah, it was. Instead of buying your energy very expensively from other countries and thereby also being dependent on them, it was much better to create your own energy.
But then you also decided to keep the price of oil and gas high in Denmark, and you made the cost of importing cars really, really expensive. Yes. Who votes for parties like that?
Well, we decided decades ago that maybe it's a good idea if you want a welfare state that is expensive, so you need a lot of tax revenue. Maybe it's then a good idea to tax the things that's a good idea to tax because you also want to limit it. Because then you get two things. You'll get the revenue from the taxes, but you will also get less pollution. Having said that, I would lie if I said that it's very popular to tax cars. It isn't. Yeah. But on the other hand, I think most people in Denmark sort of just accept it because they know, one, we need to do it because of the environment,
you pay
and
taxes
two,
on cars.
if we didn't tax that, if we didn't tax the cars, we would need the money from somewhere else and we would have to tax something different.
Coming back to the question of climate, Denmark is now right at the front of the green transition, having created the grouping beyond oil and gas at the COP26 summit actually in Glasgow. What are your immediate aims and how confident are you you're going to get there?
Well, we've decided to stop our oil and gas production. When we made the decision, we were the biggest oil producer in the EU, so we did, even though we also had a lot of renewables already then.
It's a bigger move.
We still also had oil and gas, and we still do have oil and gas today. But we decided that if we want to fight climate change, it's not enough to be leading in renewable energy. So that's really the demand side of the energy question. We also needed to be leaders on the supply side. So it would have been a bit of a paradox if in the future we would be 100% green in Denmark, but we would still withdraw oil and gas and sell it to others. So we would just export the problem. That would not be a good idea. So we decided to stop all future licensing rounds and put an end date in 2050. Now for this to actually happen, which it will, of course, we then need alternatives. So this means that we also had to spark our innovation and be even more ambitious on renewables, and that is what we're doing.
But life's not perfect. Denmark's refugee policy has international critics. Its proportional parliament means far-right parties are represented and very visible. And a controversial new law limits the proportion of non-Western people in certain neighbourhoods to aid integration.
Okay.
But though Denmark has many of the same problems facing Britain, it tends to approach them with an instinctive solidarity. Ole Dahl is a regional newspaper editor and was a political correspondent in Copenhagen.
The age for when you can leave your job is going up, because we want people to stay a little longer working.
So that's retirement age.
Retirement age, yeah, that's going up slightly all the time actually. 67 now, but it will go up to maybe 69 in a couple of years.
If you want to see subscription.
But we accept that we have to maybe be hardworking to have the money for the the welfare system, the social system we have to make sure that everyone has the possibility of a good life. Biggest problem is now to have enough people to fill out the jobs which is not occupied at the moment, meaning both the welfare system and the education system and the private companies could use a lot more staff at the moment, many places, also here locally. So we just hope for instance, the Ukrainians have very easy, refugees from Ukraine have very easily found job here, and we're happy about that. But we also need the young people when they finish school, more of them to stay in this area instead of moving to Copenhagen, for instance. We need them here to fulfill the job applies that are here.
Issues you might find in any Scottish paper. In fact, Ola is a regular visitor to Scotland and sees strong similarities with Denmark.
In many ways, Scotland and Nordic countries are so similar, I think, when it comes to life and priorities in life, that I hope also that this cooperation could even be stronger between Scotland especially and the Nordic countries.
Denmark is now a small but perfectly formed country. The astonishing thing about the Nordic countries is that there are so many small countries working together, but nobody seems to think you should all have the same currency. All of you have a different currency from the neighbour, and you're not a United States of Scandinavia.
No,
and you never will be, will you? One state.
No, never. No. We like to.
I mean, why would they want to?
Independence as we have the Scandinavian countries, and it works very well. We cooperate. And
I think it's like the British way of thinking, like, oh, Scotland, like if Scotland is like not even it's a country, but it's like,
and still have a good,
they have nothing to say, kind of thing.
Because that's needed, of course, when we have a challenge in the world. Europe should stick together.
Same for like
as far
Wales
as you can see it,
and Northern
and
Ireland,
the Nordic
like
countries,
it's not really.
And maybe also Scotland could be part of that cooperation to stick together and work together. And Scotland, but of course, we'd like to see Scotland back in Europe someday.
Is Scotland gonna break away from England?
In my journey of discovery, I'm travelling east from Copenhagen to test the ease of movement between Denmark and her nearest foreign neighbour, Sweden. Very easy, as it turns out. The famous Øresund Bridge.
Bro, I want to go on that so bad.
A frictionless border between two different countries
I want to go
with different
so
systems, different languages, and different currencies.
Does that get in the way of cross-border trade? Not when you pay by card.
I mean, who uses cash? Like, I hardly ever use cash anymore.
Yeah, just so close to Denmark and no bother. Paying here.
Yeah. Do you want the receipt?
Just like that.
Okay.
So this is Denmark. It's known for its green energy and happy people. But it's
I'm getting the Christmas vibe, okay?
threaded through my journey and across the lifespan of every Dane is cooperation. It's built into the kindergarten and unique efterskole, the district heating that powers communities, and the coalition parliament that can stick to an anti-oil strategy for 50 years. You can ski on heating systems, swim in docks, and escape your parents at 15, all courtesy of the state. Denmark is relaxed, cooperative and playful, without the stress that bedevils adversarial Britain. Happiness, like beauty, is more than skin deep. No wonder the Danes are laughing.
Okay, chat. Next country I'll visit is Denmark, okay? Like, that was such a good video. It makes you want to visit Denmark and do their activities. Okay. That's a great video.